The Washington Liberation Front. The Washington Liberation Front is the primary antagonistic faction in The Last of Us 2. Abby and her friends are introduced at the beginning of the game, and the first half is spent viewing the faction from Ellie's point of view. It's when players switch to Abby, the WLF really begins to take shape, though. Essentially, the WLF runs Seattle. The group is led by Isaac, a briefly introduced character who is said to enjoy torture and initiates the attack on Haven, the Seraphite island. The Wolves place a huge emphasis on military practices and training. The Wolves came to power when Isaac, along with Emma and James Patterson, began to revolt against the way Phaedra was operating quarantine zones. They rebelled and began spreading anti-Fedra propaganda around Seattle. After a long and violent revolution against Phaedra, the WLF gained control of the city. In The Last of Us Part 2, everyone in Seattle who isn't a Seraphite is a member of the WLF. The WLF is headquartered in Soundview Stadium. It's powered by sustainable energy, has a food court, and an outdoor kennel for all of their dogs. The WLF is highly organized, heavily armed, and very dangerous when provoked. The faction has various other stations scattered throughout the city, so staying in Seattle for any amount of time is likely to warrant an encounter. The Seraphites. The Seraphites are a religious group that lives on an island called Haven, just off the coast of Seattle. The cult began shortly after the outbreak reached Seattle, when an unnamed prophetess began preaching that the cordyceps infection was brought on by mankind's sinful living and dependence on technology. The Seraphites value living apart from technology and modern civilization. They live in primitive structures and primarily fight with axes and bows and arrows. Men are required to shave their heads, and every Seraphite has a scar on both of their cheeks. The group follows the teachings of the now-deceased prophetess and frequently says things like, "May she guide us," or "May she protect us." While the original Seraphite members joined of their own free will, a new generation is being brought up in the culture's ways and must follow the orders from the elders. Seraphites also whistle to each other in combat encounters to inform their allies of where they are and what their status is. The Rattlers. The Rattlers are a particularly disturbing faction in Santa Barbara. Rattlers are heavily armored and use both humans and infected in sadistic ways. Infected are chained up around their camp almost like an alarm system, and humans they encounter who aren't members are captured and forced to perform slave labor. Humans are treated so cruelly by the Rattlers that many try to escape just so they can commit suicide and avoid meeting their end on the pillars, tall beams set up by the beach where misbehaving slaves are strung up to die. It's clear that Rattlers take pleasure in starving and torturing their captives. Sometimes Rattlers will also intentionally infect their prisoners and chain them up to taunt them as they turn. The Fireflies are a militant group who revolted against military oppression in quarantine zones. The group was larger and more organized than other factions and prioritized researching a vaccine that could potentially protect against the cordyceps brain infection. That dream died with Jerry Anderson, the surgeon who was supposed to operate on Ellie. But there is a surviving group of Fireflies, so their future is uncertain.